Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. For the next 4 weeks, we'll be discussing events leading up to the election. All of 2020 has truly been leading up to November 3rd. Over the next few weeks, I'll be joined by some great people to discuss current events. And joining me today, we have musician and arranger Ian Felchin.
Hello.
And American government professor and founder of the Justice Warriors Academy, Ndidi Amadi.
Hey, hey.
How are you both doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I can't complain.
Amen.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Cool.
No valid complaints.
No. Well, we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, the year in general, as I talk about on every podcast, has just been a riot. But the last 10 days, I would say, has been quite a case of events in the United States. So let's just get going. So let's first talk about Trump getting COVID and the aftermath of all that. So about 11 days ago, the president of the United States was diagnosed with COVID. He went to Walter Reed and miraculously has been healed, and now he thinks he's the Messiah. That's what I think. What were your first reactions when you heard that he got COVID? Ndidi, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Honestly, I didn't know if I could believe it because so many things happen with him where it's like, is this real? Is this a fallacy? I didn't believe it. I think he did have it because, like I said, I'm struggling to breathe, and he had like something on it, like a breathing device. So I think he did have it. And I don't mean to be cruel, but it's kind of like there's consequences to like your actions. I wasn't wishing him dead. I know some people were taking it really far, but it's kind of just like, that's what happens when you hold rallies and no one's wearing a mask, and the thing is contagious. You're going to get sick. So it was almost like, but I was in disbelief when I saw that people, his supporters were still holding big events and they still weren't taking precaution. So I thought that was shocking. I was like, this is your king. He's got sick. And like,
right. I love that. This is your king. That's exactly how they act though. And I personally didn't think it was going to matter that he got it. I still think that his supporters are like, well, he got it, but he's fine. So he's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. But Ian, I know you and I have talked about this a bunch, but what were your first initial reactions when he got COVID?
I mean, I guess my first reaction was disbelief, not necessarily because I was like, I didn't believe that he had it. I think the fact that he tweeted it at like 1 a.m. to me said he definitely has it, but it was more of like, I didn't expect like the October surprise to be on time, like, and more often it was just an immediate thought of like, okay, what does this mean? Because like you said, like his supporters, they don't care. Like the next day there were memes of him as a wrestler beating coronavirus with a chair, like, so it to me, the real question was like, what does this mean for the rest of the election? Mm-hmm. Obviously, what does this mean for his health? Mm-hmm. Because as somebody who's 74, technically obese, and obviously has, is a perfect specimen of health, as he says, like it's a serious illness with a lot of risks. And regardless of who he is, it's also like a sitting president, possibly struck with a life-threatening virus in bad shape less than a month before the election, or right. A month before the election.
Right.
So it was just a lot of uncertainty for me, like so many questions raised that I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to, or are still finding out.
For sure. And I think for me, when I saw that he had it, I just kind of prayed, and that people were laughing at me on Twitter, like, don't hold your breath, that he was going to come out of it with a little bit more humility and maybe a little bit more understanding and a little bit more, I don't know, acting like a responsible human being. You contracted it, and now you can tell people, hey, it wasn't good. I don't want you guys to get it. I want, please be careful, wear your mask, social distance. And he didn't do any of that. None. He actually came out and said, don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it control your life, which makes things 10 times worse than it already was.
It's like at every possible turn in this man's life, let alone the past 3.5 years, there's all these opportunities for him to grab a situation, take control of it, own up to it, and like be a president. And in my opinion, seal the deal on re-election, like no doubt, especially this year. And they just can't even do that.
Yeah.
It's a complete fumble every time because of his ego.
And I just thought it was a height of insensitivity to say that you shouldn't fear it because a lot of people have died. I know people personally who have it but my friends are younger, so they've beaten it. But I've known my friends' parents to die. So like to say not to fear it, it's really insensitive. It's really callous. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, all the people are not going to have the best of care that he got. He got airlifted to Walter Reed, in DC. So it's like a lot of people don't have that access, especially people in the Black and brown community where COVID is really affecting them at higher rates.
I think that's the other thing that really upset me was that for someone who's essentially been denying the seriousness of this whole time, he got the care that so many people were denied. And it's heartbreaking because he doesn't even, I mean, now he's saying he's trying to make it available to everybody, even though that we'll talk about that in a second with the whole Regeneron thing. But it's when his supporters don't even really see that how harmful like his rhetoric is and how harmful his behavior is, and that's what's just so frustrating to me, like the selfishness of him and his administration as a whole, because as you saw, the event was a super spreader event. Every day at least one or two more people from that specific event that was for Amy Coney Barrett, they contracted the virus.
And it feels like that's the other thing, is that there's this, it's the insensitivity, but it's the like just sheer lack of compassion for people, even in his own perceived base or whatever, like people who maybe don't have the best quality of life or are dangerous or are not taking it seriously because of the things that he and his administration has said previously. And then on the other end of it, to come out and basically just talk about how not a big deal it was and how he's immune and he's, so great at beating this virus, it's just like, it just proves that there's the only person that matters to Donald Trump is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Not his kids, not Americans, not his followers, nothing. And it's like, it's heartbreaking.
How did we get here?
Oh, girl, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole other season of this podcast.
Right, exactly. How did we get here? How far back do we need to go? Yeah. But so now he's saying, he got this cocktail of antivirals. It's Regeneron, and apparently we found out that he has like a stake in it, or I think, if I'm not mistaken. But it found it very interesting that he wants to give this to everyone for free, but his entire platform basically is anti-socialism. And it's like, do you not realize what you're saying? And of course his supporters would take it like, oh, Donald Trump is supporting this. They think it's great. They all were on the hydroxychloroquine train. They're going to be on this train as well, but they don't even realize the irony of him saying this. But like, what were your thoughts, Ndidi?
I think that he just wants to be the savior. I think he wants to be the one to have the answer to this thing that we've been struggling with all year. I think a lot of the reason why we haven't passed the stimulus bill is because he wants to swoop in and save everything. I mean, that's a totally different subject, but I think that's
I agree.
the bottom of everything, because he has this, it's beyond pride, it's arrogance. And he just wants to save everything. That's why he wants to give it to people, give it away like candy.
So leading up to the election, I mean, we have 4 weeks into the election. What do you kind of see happening with Trump and COVID? And, he's trying to say that he wants a vaccine to come out before, which is like not possible whatsoever. But Ian, like, what do you see happening in the next 4 weeks just in regards to COVID with him?
Well, I mean, I think he's going to say at any opportunity whatever he thinks is going to make himself look the best. I mean, let's set aside whether or not he's still on a steroid that induces mania. Let's set aside if he is still sick or not. But to me, it's like he's going to take every opportunity when he's asked about COVID, and he will, and everyone is, even Fox News is asking him about it. He's going to do whatever he can to make himself look good. So whether it's saying he's going to give people Regeneron for free, which he certainly doesn't plan to, or I don't think he can, or I also think he's going to start saying that a vaccine is coming, or that he's had it, or he's seen it, or he's going to give it out, whether or not that's even remotely true, even if by some miracle, I'm just coughing. I don't have COVID. This isn't an impression of him on Hannity. I do think that he's going to start saying as we get closer, I have a vaccine, it's ready to go. I could see him blaming the Democrats or the deep state for why it's not publicly released, but promising like, oh, if I win the election, then, November 4th, the vaccine's going to ship. Like, to me, he's going to do whatever he can to make himself look like, indeed he said, like the savior, like the one who's going to protect the country like he's been saying he's going to for the past 5 years.
Ndidi, what about you? What do you think you're going to see from Trump in the next few weeks?
We're going to see a lot of antics shenanigans, promises.
Yeah.
It's a clown show at this point. I wouldn't put anything past him. I think he's in heavy campaign mode. I know the polls are showing that he's down. So we're gonna see him trying to save himself, pretty much.
Yeah.
He'll stop at nothing. It's only about winning. It's really not about doing the job. And I think we've obviously seen that over the last 3 years. It's never been about being president to all people. It's just about being on top. And if I don't know how people can't see that, but of course there are still a lot of people that are blinded by his antics, as you said. I think that's a great word to describe the things that he does. They're just antics. So yeah, we're all going to obviously be watching him closely. We'll be seeing every single tweet because I need to stay off of his Twitter, but it's like almost an addiction for me because I'm like, what did this fool say today? I have to go and see what he tweeted. So we're going to be watching him. But I want to backtrack a little bit now and talk about the vice presidential debate that happened last week with Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. My initial impression was that Kamala did great. And I felt like naturally we're going to be rooting for the side that we're on. But I will say I felt both of them, and Ian and I, we have a group text that we talk in a lot. It did feel like they were both dodging some questions. And one of the biggest questions I felt that Kamala has been dodging and Biden has been dodging is like if they're going to be doing court packing. And I think that that's something that they do need to address. So what are your guys' views on court packing, or how you think that they should actually answer that question moving forward?
Quite frankly, I don't know enough in depth about the Supreme Court and the higher levels of the justice system to really have a definite opinion on court packing itself in concept and theory. I think from like a gut reaction as a Democrat and someone who's liberal, the idea of Biden winning after Barrett is confirmed and then packing the court with more liberals sounds like a good idea. But I think also despite what Biden will say about they're already packing the courts, blah, 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 it does set a precedent because, and something I think that's important, anytime there's a game changer or a possible plan B that's maybe a little bit out there within the realms of government, I always think of, okay, well, if we do this as Democrats, there's nothing to stop the Republicans from doing the exact same thing. And then at what point do we stop trying to one-up each other? I do think that they need to answer the question about court packing. And I know that a lot of the response that Biden had in the past couple of days is because he doesn't want to play into the Trump campaign's hand to have a statement on that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, from my point of view, I would rather them come out and give an answer, even if that answer ends up being different and there's ways to argue a way that you change your mind, because sooner or later it becomes less about are they going to do it and more about why are they not answering it. Yeah. And that's an issue and a question that I feel like we don't need to get bogged down in when there are so many other serious things to be spoken of in debates and on campaign trails.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be in the spotlight because, like, you're right. There are more serious issues.
I think that they shouldn't avoid questions on both sides. I think the American people deserve straight up answers. Whatever your intentions are, we should be able to know. I don't think that's such a question to fear. And I don't know why the Republicans are so concerned about them court packing, because Donald Trump has filled the court system with almost 200 federal circuit judges, conservative side. And then if you guys paid attention to the vice presidential debate, Pence said that he was going to fill the court with all conservatives. That was their plan. So if they're saying their plan, I don't see why Biden and Harris should be afraid to say what their plan is. And another thing I think that should happen, I don't think we should be so partisan in regards to our judges. I think we need to be the most qualified. It shouldn't just be, well, they're Democrats, so we're going to fill the court with that. I don't think that that's the way we should go on either side. Let's just pick who's the most qualified.
Yeah.
That's yes, 100% yes. I read some interesting things about, there are a couple of deep dives on Amy Coney Barrett, and I'm not saying that I am thrilled that she's going to be confirmed, but I think, the best thing that we can do is, if she gets confirmed, is hold her accountable to the words that she's saying, where she's going to, rule on the side of the law, not on her opinions. And whether or not that's true, it plays into the most qualified thing, where the partisanship in the justice system, especially at such a high level, let alone all the lower courts, all it does is reinforce itself. And the more that we're worried about Republican judges, the more they're worried about Democratic judges and back and forth. And at what point does that, it's not even a court anymore. It's just a bunch of opinions. Right. It's got nothing to do with the law or reading the law or interpreting the law.
It's just about one-upping each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and nobody is served well with that mindset. What are your other impressions with the vice presidential debate? Were there specific answers that you really enjoyed? Were there questions that you wish were answered more?
Let me tell you, I was tickled. I went to Howard University. I'm a little bit biased to Senator Kamala Harris. I love seeing her on that stage. I'll leave that there. I think she handled herself well. I would have to say it was so much better to watch this debate than the presidential debate, because that one was like going to the dentist and getting a root canal. That. So what really disturbed me was when Pence couldn't answer a couple of questions. He didn't answer the question to my satisfaction in regards to white nationalism and supremacy. And he didn't answer if he was going to be able to, him and Trump are going to be able to step back if they do not win.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like his response to criminal justice system. He said something along the lines as, I can't believe that we're still talking about how we have systemic racism in our nation. I might be paraphrasing, but he said something to that effect. And I was quite shocked.
And then he kind of pivoted to focusing on like the rioters and the looters and all of that stuff, and now he wanted to talk about systemic racism.
And I was shocked. I was like, this country was built on racism. How can you not see that?
Yeah.
I don't want it to be around, but it's here.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it is interesting how evasive both Pence and Trump have been when it comes to talking about systemic racism and, you know, denouncing white supremacy and the white nationalists. It's crazy. I mean, I really don't know any other way to say it. It truly is crazy because you don't ever see them speak out against those groups. I always like to say oppressors love civility, and that's exactly how they're acting.
Yep.
And it's,
Yep.
I mean, they're obviously pandering to their base because the base loves to hear that BLM and then the people that are rioting are the ones causing all these issues without actually looking at the reason why those situations are happening. But if you're going to say that you're going to be a representative for all people, then you do truly need to be a president for all people.
I would say a couple of things. First of all, and listen, before I even say this, obviously the two of you have much more direct encounters with this than me, but it was so fucking infuriating to watch what was happening and know that Kamala, and to a lesser extent Susan Page, couldn't really speak up or take control for fear of being labeled a nasty woman or angry black woman or whatever. And that's all I'll say, because obviously, you know, I'm as a straight white male, I'm not the person to really speak to that. But my God, it was horrible. And as the father of a daughter, knowing that even as a, you know, white woman, when she grows up, she will still likely encounter some of that, is fucking drives me crazy. Anyways, tied into that though, it was, listen, Kamala was great. I think she handled herself well. She maybe evaded more questions or took too long to answer some questions directly than I would have preferred. A lot of times it would seem like she was off on a path, but she would tie it back, which was great. I think, unfortunately, Pence was literally just like trying to real-time reinterpret Trump campaign bullet points into answers and then like seal it with a creepy white middle-class smile afterwards. Unfortunately, he's just creepy, so I don't think it really worked. But
he is, you know, my husband was like, Mike Pence just looks like he drinks a glass of milk, and it made me feel so uncomfortable.
It looks like he drinks a glass of milk with every meal, like eggs, bacon, and milk. A cheeseburger, fries, and milk, like Chinese food. Not that he probably eats Chinese food and milk. Like he's just like weird and smarmy. And, you know, I'm sure his kids love him and his family loves him and stuff. But especially in his role now, the entire thing felt disingenuous. Especially the like, how dare you ask about white supremacy because the president's son-in-law and grandchildren are Jewish. Like, dude, come on.
Right.
Like, that's why you ask about it. Like, it's just this like sickening, like almost like willful display of, hey, look at me. I don't have to really be held accountable to all this stuff because I'm the vice president and, you know, facts don't matter or anything.
Right.
I do really wish that, you know, regardless of what I said first, I wish that Susan Page would have been able to control it a little bit more. Obviously, it's a big task, and I do think she did a lot better than some people are saying. I think it's weird. Like you said, it felt so much better, Ndidi, to watch this debate compared to the garbage fire that we saw a couple weeks ago. But to me, it almost made it worse because all the lack of substance and the lack of a coherent, non-racist bullet point from the Republican Party were there, but it was like under this cover of like civility that just felt so false. And it sounds weird to say this, but I almost preferred the like rabid monkey chewing the scenery of Trump, because at least there was no veil. You know what I mean?
There's no filter whatsoever. Yeah.
I think Pence feels like the ultimate gaslighter, because it's like he's smiling in your face, but I was like, he's saying the same trash. He's just saying it with a smile, soft hair.
And he's he's calm, cool, collected, but it's still evil. It's true.
I will say though, as an addendum to my first point, Kamala may not have vocally taken control, but her facial expressions were like that. If I guarantee you, when he looked at her when she was doing that, he instantly flashed back to like getting in trouble as a kid, because that was like,
she was like, "Sir,
you do something wrong, and your mother pulls you into like the living room or the principal or something like that, and doesn't have to say a word. It's just the facial expression. It was gold."
Yeah. So now we're going to have a second presidential debate, but it has been canceled.
Right.
And I'm not surprised by that at all. I actually had a feeling that Trump was not going to want to do a second one anyway. But this one was officially canceled by the commission, though, right? Not him.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, because Trump got coronavirus, they wanted to make it virtual, and he was like, I don't want it to be virtual, I want it to be in person. No, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So it was canceled like a kindergarten fight.
I love that he was like, well, I don't want it to be virtual, because then they can cut me off whenever they want.
They can actually mute your mic. Yeah. Well, that's a shame, because I actually was I was going to suffer through the next one. That first one, it did wear me out. I was actually exhausted after watching it. But I really do have to give props to Kamala, because it takes a lot as a Black woman to have to sit there. And I was telling somebody, like, the emotional Olympics that you have to go through in your head as a Black woman, being like, okay, I want to say this, but I can't say it just like this. Otherwise I sound like this. So I need to word it this way, but I have to make sure that I get this point across. Like, she handled herself so well. And I don't think people really did give her enough credit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Very even killed. When he got under her skin, she smiled and made a face.
Yes.
That's about it,
And I think the other thing that she really showed is that, because, God bless Biden, but he is old as dirt. Let's just be honest. He is. If God forsake anything happened to him, or he wasn't able to continue, I think she did show that she absolutely could lead this country by the way that she presented herself. And I think that's kind of what was the plan in the first place in choosing her, with her record and, the time that she spent in government. She completely is more than qualified. So I do, even though she does come with a little bit of red tape, and we can talk about that in a second, but I understand why she was chosen. Yeah.
And I'm glad, because when she first ran for president, people weren't really behind her. I was behind her because I have my reasons, but I think people are starting to come around and say, like, this is why she ran for president. She knew that she can handle this. She knew that she was a good politician, and she can carry herself with poise, and she's very intelligent and very sharp, and you can't she's not a doormat. People are starting to see, like, this is why she ran for president.
Exactly.
When she first came out.
Exactly. So as we're looking at the Biden and Harris campaign, what do you think the positives have been, and what do you think that they've shown that they're going to accomplish and you truly do believe, or what do you think that they're kind of lacking? Because I know there are a lot of specifically Black Americans that aren't 100% sold because of their past records, but I also know there are some people that say, I don't know what their plan is for this, or I don't know what their plan is for this. So what do you think the positives have been in their campaign so far?
I think a lot of people should go to Biden's website. He has a very clear plan for Black Americans, this segment of the population, and it's very, very detailed. It's laid out. I like to see. I think people should start with that if they're confused about what does he stand for. Same thing with Trump. If people are on the fence or whatever, they should compare plans. I think that what has been lacking, Biden has had some snafus with the way that he has spoken.
Right.
You're not Black. I'm like, sir, you're not Black either.
Right.
So he's had some snafus, and at that time he didn't have a vice presidential person running with him. So I was like, he needs to pick somebody quick to keep him in line with some of the things that he said. Both of their records are in question, but the thing I think people need to realize that politicians evolve and they change.
Yes.
A lot of
Yeah.
people, Barack Obama, that was their favorite president ever in life. He's changed on some of his policy positions. He's changed and they love him. So like, I think we have to give people room to evolve and grow and look at what they've done recently. Yes, Kamala was a prosecutor and people have issues with that. But as I'm from California, you guys all are, she's our senator. I think she's done a really good job as a senator. I do.
Yeah.
I think they champion things that I care for. So I think people need to like keep those things in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree. I think a great place. This race is really interesting to me, and all presidential races are like this, but this one especially, where it seems like the policy substance comes from texts and websites, not text messages, like text, like written text. It's not said as much maybe as in other races, because I think so much about the vocal part of the campaign and the statements and the sound bites are all more about, we're not going to be what's happening now, which I think is appropriate, because they need to show that they're going to be different and that this is not going to be, either a rehash of the last 4 years, which no way it would be, or your average typical, Democrat, whatever people think is stereotypical Democratic administration. Whereas the policy substance, a lot of times I find myself going to his website to either answer questions people have asked me or things that I want to know about. And I actually think that's strong if enough people do it, because it's so easy in today's world to get caught up in the 24-hour news, Twitter news, all these little quotes, small little pieces of information that a lot of times are really just actual quotes or sound bites from the candidates themselves or answers to questions that they were posed. And in that kind of environment, I think it's really hard to put like definite policy through. So one of the things I think they've handled well is being able to kind of juggle both of those things and be really good with social media and marketing. Like the thing with the fly, as much as I'm tired of hearing about the fly from the presidential debate, like before the big debate was over, they were selling fly swatters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's that kind of thing, and making little funny tweets and promotional things that stick in people's mind. And theoretically, once you have that in your mind and you want to learn more, if you're still undecided somehow, you then go to the website and seek out the information. I think I really like what you said, Ndidi, about allowing politicians to evolve.
Yes.
Because I think in and this is a larger conversation about cancel culture and all that, but I think as humans, like we always hopefully learn from our mistakes and learn from our experiences, if nothing else. And trying to hold somebody permanently accountable to a detrimental level from something that they may have done 5, 10, 20 years ago that has since been eclipsed, or at least apologized for, or at least they've tried to learn more and maybe do something a little different, there's just no way to exist, and no way we can expect, especially politicians, to live in that environment. So I really like that idea of like, they may have done this in the past with their records, but that doesn't mean that they're going to do the same now or not be different now.
For sure. And I completely agree with that. But I think one of the things, and I think we just see this with public figures in general, is that there isn't this humility to come forward and say, you know what, I did this in the past, but I've learned from it and I wouldn't do this again. And I wish we saw more of that, because I think
100%.
I would hope I'm the type of person that would be forgiving for that. Be like, you know what, you learned from your mistakes. Your trajectory in your life over the last 5 years has shown that you've made a change. You're absolved. But a lot of people just don't do that. And I really wish, specifically with politicians, that we would have more people coming forward in that way.
Great point. That would help a lot of people. We're just looking for authenticity and someone who's genuine and someone who thinks that will champion our voice. But if you can't own up to your mistakes and you're supposed to be a leader, it does look bad on you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's great, because in order to be authentic, you have to be like genuinely a human being like the rest of everybody else, and that's, I think if we saw more politicians doing that, the world could be a different place.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, speaking of not being genuine, I'm going to move on to Candace Owens. Now, I'm not one to want to throw another Black woman under the bus. However, this woman is writing my last nerve. Okay. Let me say, I do think Candace is actually incredibly intelligent. I do, but I think that intellect is being put towards the wrong agenda. So if you don't know what Blexit is her nonprofit organization that she's created in order to help Black people exit from the Democratic Party and move to the Republican Party. Now, granted, if the Republican Party were what the Republican Party was, when John McCain was running, when Mitt Romney was running, fine. I'm sure there actually would be a lot of more of Black Republicans if they weren't so outward with their racism. But what the Republican Party is now and what Trump has turned it into, not even just Black people, I can't for the life of me imagine anybody wanting to be a part of this
Seriously.
party. But Ndidi, as a Black woman, what are your views on Candace Owens?
Candace Owens, I don't think that she would describe herself as a Black woman. I don't think that she identifies with the Black community.
Okay.
Clout chasing. I think that her beliefs are really not hers, to be quite honest. She's shocking to me. She's appalling. The whole Brexit thing doesn't make any sense. It's like, what are you offering? It's like, if there's going to be a barter system, if we're leaving the Democratic Party, and this is like, first of all, it's a generalization that all Black people are in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. What are you offering? What is so better over there that we're not getting where we currently are? How are you championing our voice? Because you're not doing it on either side. So Candace Owens, to me, I don't even like speaking her name.
Hey, I'm with you on it. Her whole story is very interesting to me because, you're saying I don't even think she identifies as a Black person. She completely does. And it's crazy to me because I don't think that, Black people are a monolith. I do think that we're all very different. We all have different interests, and that's completely fine. But her approach to trying to show that the differences that we have is just so volatile, and it's so she's very vicious in some of the things that she says. She's very vile. She's very demeaning. She's very demeaning. I mean, we've talked about this before, but I mean, what were your initial impressions when you heard about Brexit?
I thought somebody had misspelled Brexit. Like I didn't really know that
You're
was
like, what is this?
I mean, I don't know. It's weird from like an outside perspective. As a white male, like I don't understand why. Well, I don't understand the thought that any one community or race based purely on the color of their skin is a monolith, or that they're all one political party, or they're all one, extreme or the other. But I just, it feels, the whole thing felt to me like someone who's literally being contrarian just to be contrarian, just to be the other side. It's not even devil's advocate. It's like, oh, well, because most people I see around me are X, Y, and Z, I'm going to be 1, 2, and 3. And it just seems like such a soulless
existence,
self-serving. Well, yeah, soulless existence, but like a self-serving thing, almost to like reassure herself that she's this individual, that she has her own beliefs, that she's not succumbing to this conformist idea, whatever it may be, even though it may seem like she's going against the rational thought for both the community she's from and just humanity in general. I mean, it's not entirely surprising to me because I've seen people like that. We all have, and I felt that on a much lesser extent, not politically or anything, but the idea of, well, everybody is saying this and likes to be this and identifies with this, so the gut reaction is, well, no, I'm going to be the total opposite. But she seems to be taking it like far beyond the pale of just saying an opposite belief. Like you said, it's really aggressive and antagonizing.
Yeah.
And it's condescending to the point of, it sounds like, well, if you don't leave the Democratic Party, then you are less of a Black person, or you are less of whatever it is. And it's just like,
what's your end goal here?
Right. Like, you're not even trying to say, the Black community can be made up of different political views. You're saying the Black community is wrong and my political views are right, so you should come join this side. Right. It's the antithesis of what it's trying to stand for. Right. To me, from my perspective.
Right. And I personally do wish that she would just, again, not be so condescending and just mean, but would lay out like, hey, this is why I chose to leave the Democratic Party. This is why the Republican Party has
Right.
benefited me. This is why I think Black people will benefit from being Republicans. Like, if you just presented yourself in a better way, people might actually listen to what you have to say. But her approach is just so, like you said, it's antagonistic. So it's like, I'm not listening to you, you
Mhm.
know?
But it also, I think part of it's because now we associate Democratic and Republican with not racist and racist.
Mhm.
And regardless of to the depths of which that's true, which I think in a lot of ways it is, again, from my perspective, you guys obviously have something a little deeper, but it's like it's not that simple. You can't just go out there and be mean and angry about stuff and say you're doing the opposite without having some kind of information to back it up. I mean, at least that's what it seems like to me.
100%. Ndidi, I was going to ask you though, as a Black woman, I'm assuming you obviously identify as a Democrat. Do you?
Independent. I voted
You're
Democrat.
in.
I don't
Okay,
have titles.
I get it. I get it. Well, so but let's look at kind of what Candace is trying to say. Do you feel as a Black woman that the Democratic Party does need to do better for Black people?
I think America needs to do better for Black people.
That's a whole nother conversation too.
If that's what you're trying to make, then I agree. I think both parties have taken advantage of Black people, especially Black women.
Yeah,
I know with
yeah.
elections, they're like, well, we need Black women to save us. I was like, well, y'all need to save us.
Y'all need to say
Right. Always looking for Black
yes.
people to come in and swoop in and save the election. I
Yeah,
think both parties have taken advantage of Black people.
For sure.
However, in this current time, I feel like the Republican Party is outright racist. So I cannot get down with that. And
Yeah.
I was never that type of person to be like, oh, I'm anti-Republican, I'm anti this. I don't even think Trump's a Republican. I think that he wanted to run with the party who would accept him for what
he would have ran as an independent if he thought it would benefit him more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not even I'm anti-Trump. It's not even like I'm anti-Republican. But this Republican Party right now, basura, trash.
She pulled out the Spanish.
They probably wouldn't understand what that means.
She pulled out the Spanish. Yes,
that's great.
But I mean, you do get to a deeper point that America as a whole hasn't done right by Black people yet. So I truly hope with the Biden-Harris campaign, with like his Lift Every Voice and Sing plan, that they actually do it, because all eyes are on you right now. I do think they
hold them to it. All these promises,
yes,
we're not
yes.
not the same generations. Like, no, this is what you said. It's on your website.
It's all about holding them accountable.
You out. Like, we're not. It's not a game anymore.
It's all about holding them accountable. And that's the other thing. Look, when we go back to the whole cancel culture thing and people having issues with Biden and Harris, it's like, no, you don't give up now. This after they're voted in, that is when you start to do all of the work. That is when you start to push them. You keep the pressure on them because you have to hold people accountable. Otherwise, they actually won't ever learn or make any changes.
Well, and I think there's such a big difference that we as a society miss between saying something you did offends me or something you did wronged me or I take issue with it. I want to voice that complaint and address how it can be changed or move or how we can move forward. There's a difference between that and like something you did angers me, so I don't care about you. I'm never gonna support you. I don't want you to be in the public eye at all. I mean, and I can only speak for myself. Like so many times, I'm sure that I was putting my foot in my mouth on issues of race in the past, even if I thought that I wasn't, because I don't know. I have no frame of reference as a white male, and I would expect and want and appreciate people, which you have done to me, Malynda, saying like, okay, listen, like this is here's coming from my perspective. Shut up for a second. Listen to what's actually going on, and that's incredibly valuable, because I think that if we can do that with each other, we should be able to do that with politicians without having to like completely negate their entire career. And I think that's a big struggle within the Democratic Party is a lot of people want to act as if they have done right by people of color just because they may have done better than the Republicans. And those are two very different things.
Good point.
And a lot of people don't want to realize that that's not the same thing. That's just, we're not outright racist.
Yeah.
Good point.
It's a very good point. Mm-hmm. Well, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from both of you predictions of things that will happen this week.
the rapture.
Girl, it's been the rapture all year. Okay, this is the longest rapture ever.
There's a lot of filler episodes in this rapture.
I can't even predict anymore. At this point, I don't know. I'm just holding on to my edges. I don't know what's going to happen in this week.
We never know. Every week, every day, honestly, is just a new episode. I want this series finale to happen already. But Ian, do you have any predictions?
Can I predict what I would like to see?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
To get their act together and pass a stimulus bill that's going to help Americans. That's what I would like to see this week.
That would be great.
I
That
agree.
Would be great.
I unfortunately don't think that's going to happen. That's
Yeah.
my prediction.
Either.
But my prediction in that will be that there will just be further squabbling because clearly the president thought he was being strong by saying, or he was on drugs, that by saying that no, the stimulus talks are over, and then the markets tanked and he freaked out. So he wants to be the one to say, I orchestrated the stimulus bill that saved America.
The savior.
I think we're seeing that the Senate Republicans really don't care about that anymore, and are now, since they are themselves close to a precipice of falling off, that they're starting to focus on self-preservation regardless of Trump or not. So I feel like there's going to still be the squabbling and the arguing because every side, all three sides of the triangle are now purely only in it for themselves. And as much as the Democrats may want to say they're in it for the American people only, I don't fully believe that. I think some of what they want would certainly benefit it, but they also want to secure a Democratic win. They want to secure that the Democrats are the ones that provided this, because that's politics. It's politics in general.
Absolutely.
In terms of Trump, I mean, I think there's some odds he relapses, gets sick again.
That was going to be my prediction. I have a feeling that it's not done with him with COVID.
I hate to antagonize overanalyze every little detail, but like he had the IV bandage the other day. He's still a little crazier than usual. Like his interview with Maria Bartiromo, I can't pronounce her last name for some reason. This morning on Fox News was like crazy again. Like Biden wants to get rid of your cars.
Yeah.
She asked him about UFOs, and he's like, "Oh, I just heard about that 2 days ago. I'm gonna look into it." Like, just I feel like there's something still going on with him that's not just he sees bad poll numbers and was feeling sick. I think there's still some kind of long lasting effect.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he gets sicker. I mean, I think the reality is though, like, we don't know. There's no way to predict what's going to happen.
Right.
He could release. Oh, I can predict one thing. He's going to ruin the Clinton campaign this year by releasing all those emails.
Which brings me to a point. Hillary Clinton is not running. People need to stop bringing her up. They're obsessed with Hillary. All right. Well, go ahead.
Say, you notice how like he keeps going on and on about it, and then like Bill Barr has to kind of be like, it may not be ready by the 11th. Like clearly, there's like nothing there. Or if there is, it's not about Biden or Obama or even Hillary. It's about like lower level people.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, the road to the election is going to be a very long one over these next few weeks. But I'm glad to have you guys joining me. So Ndidi and Ian will be back next week. And then 2 more weeks, we'll have Drexel Hurd joining us. Make sure you're subscribing to We Need to Talk on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Facebook. And we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.